Hi there, today we're going to talk about past paper from 2024, Making a Fist. Again, as a tradition, I'm going to read through it with you first, and then I'm going to show you my train of thought. Hopefully, after this video, you can, approach the questions like I do. And finally, I'm going to show you the full marking scheme. Basically, that's the thing that we're gonna do in this video. So, let's go. Making a fist. For the first time on the road north of Typical, I felt the life sliding out of me. A drum in the desert, harder and harder to hear. I was 7. I laid in the car, watching palm trees swirl the sickling pattern past the glass. My stomach was a melon split while inside my skin. How do you know if you are going to die? I begged my mother. We had been traveling for days. With strange confidence, she answered, when you can no longer make a fist. Years later, I smiled to think of that journey. The borders we must cross separately, stamped with our unanswerable woes. I, who did not die, was still living, still lying in the back seat, behind all my questions, clenching and opening one small hand. So every single time when you read a poem, you need to first understand the literal meaning. So basically, what's going on here is that the dramatic speaker was in a car journey, and he felt dying, and it felt like dying. And the poem also talks about the present time, when the dramatic speaker reflects on death and his perspective of it. So how can you answer question 1? What's the speaker experiencing in the first stanza? So basically it's about the literal meaning of the first stanza. So you'd like to kind of understand that it is the first time that the dramatic speaker feels like dying, okay? The first time feel like dying. For the first time, there's a really important words here. Life sliding out of me, dying, basically, dying. And then, you may feel a bit weird here. A drum in the desert. Probably don't quite understand this at first sight. Also, a melon split wild in my skin. Basically, if you are a girl, you may kind of you can share this feeling when you have your period, right? So basically, it refers to probably a period, probably a stomachache, probably some illness, whatever it is. So about the drum in the desert. Basically, it means like the dramatic speaker is listening to his heartbeat. In a car journey, also in Mexico. I don't think you can really find a drum on the driving way. So, yeah, these two are metaphors, and they're metaphors of illness. So now you can take a look at the complete marking scheme and bullet points. Okay, so here, just talked about it. A car journey, and they're in Mexico. They're in Mexico. Heartbeat, drum in the desert refers to the heartbeat. Life sliding out of me, feel like dying, fear or panic. Also, if you want to, you can also comment on this phrase, probably a period, probably a stomachache. Yeah, just something to note here. Setting is also important. You also need to mention that the dramatic speaker at the time was 7. Yep, basically that's it. 4 marks. Question 2. How the poem's 3 stanzas help organize its content and present its ideas. So basically, ideas refer back to the theme, these things: death, change of life view, or maturity, growth, something like that. So we must understand that the first stanza is about the past, is about childhood. And then the second stanza is also about the past, but is somehow more complex, because it's about conversation, it's about the building of one's values. So basically, the idea of death is taught by the dramatic speaker's mother. So it's really important here. The way how the dramatic speaker sees death is actually taught by his mother. Okay, conversation here, a really important thing, because it is the foundation of the dramatic speaker's values, or his way to perceive the world. And now, the final stanza is basically about reflection. It is about the present time. And you should note that still lying in the back seat behind all my questions is a metaphor. It's not really kind of referring that is in a car. Yep, I think it's most important part which many candidates missed. So we must think that you must consider that the mother is actually the building of the dramatic speaker, especially the perception of the world. Yep, so you must kind of mention the mother and also the connection between her and the themes. So you can have a look at it. Different section of poems content. So basically, it's a cliche. Basically, different sections about different things. But if you want to be more concise and precise, just talk about the first stanza, the first, second stanzas are about the past, and second stanzas is about the conversation with his mother. You can see memory of childhood. Basically, you just need to answer childhood and then fine. And also, you need to talk about the setting. So basically, the first stanza is about setting the whole vibe. The first image that we have here is in a car. So conversation, you also need to mention kind of how does the mother infuse the dramatic speaker with the ideas of death? Okay, basically that's how you get this point. Obviously, you can't kind of directly, get all these points, but you can somehow, get it in some paraphrases. Again, the final stanza is set in the present. It's about the modern reflection of death. And also, there's a really, really kind of a complex point here, is that the dramatic speaker at the present time reflects more about life, behind all my questions. So, in the second stanza, the dramatic speaker has only one question. How do you know if you're gonna die? And then he gets his answer, and then he gets the answer, when you can no longer make a fist. So, one question only. But now, he has many questions about life. So that's the structure. So, question 3. What do the poem's last 3 lines mean in relation to the poem as a whole? So, remember, when you encounter this kind of question, you must always link all your observations back to the themes. Sometimes it could be a theme, sometimes it could be the themes, so you must kind of make a note of it. So, final 3 lines. I who did not die. So, who did not die here is basically referring back to the first dying experience, right? The first feeling of dying. Life's liding. And then here, I who did not die. Not dead. At the present time, the dramatic speaker is not dead. But in stanza 1, he was feeling shit. He was severely ill, and he thought he was to die, basically. So here, there's a contrast here. But why there's the use of contrast here? You also need to put it in your answer. So the reason why contrast is used here is that the dramatic speaker needs to show that there's a change of his ideas about death, or the dramatic speaker's growth. So that's the important thing, connecting back to the themes. Okay, to the themes. That's out of screen. The themes. Also, just a footnote here. Probably because, he's just simply a child. His words can't be really trusted completely. So probably, you can see that we've been traveling for days. Probably he was just bored. He was weary of the car journey. He wasn't really dying. So you also need to kind of mention it if you want to achieve a complete interpretation. And then there's an image here, an image of the speaker lying in the back seat. It's an image, is not an action, so bear in mind that. then I smile. So this phrase really tells you that the dramatic speaker grows. So now he's a grown-up, and then he reflects on his naivety, basically, their naivety in the past. So obviously, this shows that he has changed his attitude towards death. Okay, again, linking back to the theme of growth. Also, the back seat is an obvious reference to the car in stanza 1. Also, the small hand is also a clear reference to the feast in the second stanza. Because, you know, the dramatic speaker is still living, so he actually does what his mother told him, you know, to make a feast, because you're living, so make a feast. So he's clenching and opening one small hand. However, I don't know if this happened to you, but if it really did, then probably it would be, you know, worth noting a bit. So probably you may interpret it in this way. So a small hand probably refers to a baby's hand. If you take this phrase literally, probably you may consider the dramatic speaker is now a parent. I mean, actually it's more or less in the right track, as long as you can explain it well. Yeah, because, you know, if put it in the case, if the dramatic speaker is really a parent, then he's kind of imagining that the child would kind of experience the feelings that he once had again. So he clenched and opened one small hand, which is actually his baby's hand, if you want to kind of explain this phrase in this way. Yep. Then we can look at the answer here. So you have the contrast of death and life, just talked about it, and also maturity and naivety, also the past and the present, the contrast of the past and the present, also the back seat, you know, the small hand. All these refer back to the first and second stanzas. Yeah, basically that's it. Yeah, also probably it's a bit harder, you know. Now the dramatic speaker reflects on more questions about life, which when he was a child didn't quite encounter. Yep, basically that's it. So I hope you enjoy it. This paper from 2024, and I hope the video is rewarding and fruitful for you. So I will see you very soon.